This sort of concept was founded by an American guy called Gray Cook. And what he saw was throughout the body there was this alternating function of the joint. We could go further than the joints I've put here, so if you want to go to the toe needs to be mobile. Okay, so you need a nice mobile toe, that needs to be able to move. Then the arch of the foot needs to be nice and stable. The ankle needs to be mobile, so we need a nice freely moving. Knee needs to be stable, although it is a very large range of movement at that joint, it needs to be stable. Because above that you've got the hip, which needs to be mobile. Lower back stable, upper back mobile, shoulder girdle, which is your clavicle and your scapula, that needs to be stable, and then the shoulder joint, which is the ball and socket, needs to be mobile. Stable, mobile, stable, mobile. So we've got this alternating thing going on, or function going on throughout the body. So that's sort of part one to a freely moving body. Now what has also been found, and what I tend to see, and people may well be able to relate to this. For instance, if we have a back problem, so we have a lower back pain, what I tend to find, and what I've had conversations with various chiropractors and osteopaths and Gray Cook himself, is when we have a back problem, we tend to see either above or below that restriction in our mobility. So we're supposed to have mobile hips, but if the back becomes painful and unstable, the hips will become all nice and tight to take up the slack of the unstable back, if that makes sense. So what will happen is the mobile joint will then become stiff to make up for the instability at the foot or the knee. So the hips will become stiff to make up for the instability at the knee or the lower back. So what we then have to do, which is why most people have this non-specific back pain, is because people don't look further than where the pain is. So a part of my job, which is what I was talking to you, Rich, about earlier, was what's happening above and what's happening below, and how far in this chain do we have to explore, and do we have to move around? Because it could be as low as the foot. If people have got collapsed arches, for instance, this is a very easy one. If someone's got a collapsed arch, I'm quite lucky, I've got quite stiff feet, so my arches are quite high, so I can't really do a flat foot. But if our foot becomes flat, a freely moving and proper mechanical body, the knee needs to track sort of the foot. But if my foot falls inwards, so does my knee. Now my knee is supposed to move backwards and forwards like that. Now if my knee falls inwards and I try and make it, it's now going to start moving in a direction that it doesn't really want to go, which is then going to start putting pressure on the ligaments that hold the knee together. So we may be experiencing pain here, but the problem may be walking here. So in order to stabilise that foot, what will happen is the ankle will become tight. If the ankle becomes tight, that will further offset what the knee's doing. And then if we are moving around and lifting and things like that, as soon as we go to take our step or lift straight away, the knee goes in, and that straight away offsets the knee, but it also offsets what's going on here, and then that's how it moves up. So if we've got a shoulder problem, it could be something to do with the foot. And this is a big part of what I have to do when I'm working with people, is talk to them about their injuries and talk to them about where their pain has been in the past, because there may well be a pattern to it, and I may be able to find where that pattern's going and where that pattern's coming from. I have worked with a lady in the past, and this was just completely random. I didn't really aim for this to happen, but she was complaining of like a headache. Obviously the normal thing is, well, let's get you some ibuprofen and get rid of the headache. And I just said to her, just off the cuff, I just said, just get, I can't remember what it was like a hockey ball or a golf ball or something. I just said, just pop that under your foot. So she started rolling under the foot, and just started doing that, and she was like, oh, that feels nice. So I did that, and then all of a sudden, She was like, oh, where's that gone? I mean, a couple of minutes later, it wasn't like it was the magic bullet that's going to cure all headaches. But that just shows, if we've got tension in one area of the body, it could be creating the pain somewhere else. Because again, as I was speaking to Rich earlier, who said...
what you just explained, by the way, about the leg is my left leg.
Oh, right, okay.
That is exactly it.
Yeah. So, what happens as well, which is a part of the reason why the thing in the foot worked, is we've got this tissue. Now, this tissue doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's called fascia. And if you can imagine a suit with loads of pockets in, and then pockets within pockets, and in all of these pockets, you put all your muscles. But all these muscles are joined by this suit. Now, the suit is the fascia, and then you've got all the muscles in this suit. It's a bit like a bulletproof vest, and you've got all your bits that go around it, if you will. And if you've got tension down here, in a muscle, or in fascia, or anywhere, in any tissue, because it's connected via the fascia, it could be pulling here, but pulling all the way up through the back and into the shoulder. And again, as I was speaking to Rich, there's a pattern to it. It goes from this shoulder, diagonally across the back, down into your opposite hip, and then straight down that leg. So what people tend to find is, if you've got a problem here, have a look at that shoulder. Doesn't mean that it's going to solve the problem, but you may find that there's something up in that shoulder that's aggravating down here because of the way it's connected across the back. So what we have to do, as trainers, I believe, this doesn't always get done, but what I believe as trainers is we have to have this basic understanding of how the body works, because then when someone comes up in front of us and they go, I want to achieve this goal, but my hip, but my foot, but my back, but my this, but my that, we need to be able to go, right, okay, well let me explore this, well let me explore that. Because at the moment, fitness trainers don't do that. I teach the level 2 and the level 3 entry-level qualifications for personal trainers. I know what's being taught in that, and I know it's not this. What I also know is that when trainers go into the industry and they start work, and I've had this conversation with them, they say the first person they sit down for, they aren't prepared for. And they say it's a baptism of fire, because they sit down with them and they go, I want to lose weight and I want to turn up. And then, got my back, but this, I'm on this medication, that, and they read off all this stuff and they go, I haven't been taught this. And then they have to go away and read. So as trainers, we need to be able to have this knowledge, and a part of my job has been to find this out, because that's basically what happened to me. Was all that was coming up was, well, I haven't been taught that, well, I haven't been taught that, I haven't been taught that, so I've had to educate myself on all of this. So what we have to create, coming back in the room, I guess, is this freely moving body. So if we've got pain, we need to check the hips out. We need to get the hips moving, and I'll explain a little bit more on how we do that later on, but we need to get the hips moving, and that should release the pressure on the lower back. Because I'd liken it, like, you know one of those kettles that makes a heck of a noise because it hasn't got one of the little electrical things, it makes it, and you've got to run to the kitchen when it goes off and flip the little thing on. Well, that's what your hips are, basically. Builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and when it starts whistling, that's when the pain comes out. So what we have to do is open up the little bit of the kettle, which is stretching out the hips. So that's one of the things we have to do, is make sure we understand this sort of concept, get the mobile joints mobile, get the stable joints stable. Okay?